The gospel text of today may be seen to be divided into two parts. In the first part, John the Baptist continues his preaching, but here specifically points to the one who is to come after him, but who is more powerful than John is. John also points to the difference in his baptism and in the baptism that Jesus will administer. John's baptism is only a preparation in order to receive the one who is to come. The coming one, in Greek, erkemenos, is the one who would baptize not merely with water, but with the Holy Spirit. And thus, this baptism would be infinitely greater than the baptism of John. In the second part, Mark narrates the incident of the baptism of Jesus. While there are questions about some of the miracles that Jesus worked, and some would ask, did this really happen? No one today doubts that the baptism of Jesus was a historical event and really did take place. The reasons for this are not only that all the three synoptic gospels have narrated this event, but it can be seen from the manner in which they do that at least Matthew and Luke would rather not narrate this event. They do not only because it happened, but also because it was the foundational experience in the life of Jesus. In the Gospel of Mark, this incident of the baptism is narrated in 3 verses, Mark chapter 1, verses 9 to 11. And there are 3 things, 3 events which occur at the baptism of Jesus. After Jesus is baptized, even as he comes up out of the water, he sees the heavens split open. The Greek word is schizomenos, which means the inbreaking of God into our world. It signifies that at the baptism of Jesus, the heavens are now open consistently and constantly. God communicates and will keep communicating with humanity and with his world which God has created. And so the baptism of Jesus opens God's heart and opens the heavens. The second incident or event is that the Spirit comes down on Jesus, which is a manifestation of the approval of this event. God wanted his Son to be like humans in every sense of the word. Jesus himself took on not only external humanity in a form, but he became flesh, which means he took on every single aspect of we as humans. And he is like us in every single way. The third and the climax of the events which occur is the voice from heaven speaks. And the voice issues to Jesus an invitation. And the invitation is through 2 Old Testament texts, which are Psalm 2, verse 7, and Isaiah 42, verse 1. Psalm 2, verse 7 is the first part of what the voice from heaven says, and this is what it says, addressing Jesus directly. You are my beloved Son. The second part of what the voice says is from Isaiah 42:1 and says, "In you my soul delights," or "In you I am well pleased." What does this mean for Jesus? And how does Jesus interpret what the voice invites him to do and be? Psalm 2 is a coronation psalm. And a coronation psalm was a psalm which was sung when the king was ascending the throne. And so, "You are my beloved son" has to do with kingship, has to do with royalty, has to do with authority, has to do with a crown of gold. Isaiah 42 verse 1 is the first song of the suffering servant. And there God says through Isaiah, "Behold, my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom I am very pleased," or "in whom my soul delights." In other words, the voice from heaven is issuing what we might see as a double invitation. Through Psalm 2, verse 7, it is inviting Jesus to be king, to be son, or in Greek, agapetos. However, to the second part of the quotation, Isaiah 42:1, the first of the suffering servant songs, the voice is inviting Jesus to be servant, to be slave, in Greek, doulos. So the invitation is to be king, servant, to be servant, king, to be king, who becomes king by being servant, to be king, who becomes king, but only by being servant. There is no other way. Because in the kingdom of Jesus, service will not be domination. Service will not be authority. Service will be service. And authority will be translated as service. Jesus will come not to be served, but to serve, which he says explicitly in Mark chapter 10, verse 45. That this is true, and that Jesus accepts this invitation from God is made visible when at the death of Jesus, two events occur. And one of these is the rending of the veil of the temple, where Mark uses the same verb, schizominus. Like at the baptism, the heavens were rent open. Now at the death, the veil of the temple is rent open to indicate that now we do not need to focus on the heavens and look up. No, now for salvation, we need to look at the cross. We don't need to look at the veil of the temple. We don't even need to look at the temple. We need to keep our gaze fixed on the cross, because that is where the invitation was accepted and the invitation was completed. The second, while in the baptism, the voice from heaven spoke, now in Mark chapter 15, verse 39, the voice from earth speaks, and the voice of a supposedly unbeliever, the centurion, who looks at the crucified Jesus and proclaims him Son of God. In other words, the invitation at the baptism to be king who became king, but only by being servant, is accomplished. And the fact that it is accomplished is made visible through the proclamation of the centurion. Our king is a king who gives his life for all and continues to give it for all. Will I, in imitation of my king, reach out to at least one person today?